Hello everyone and welcome to our online seminar on computer delivered IELTS. I hope you can all hear me well. My name is Layla and I'm a global IELTS master trainer at the British Council. Today I'm going to give you an overview of the IELTS test followed by an introduction to the computer delivered test. There'll be some time at the end for you to ask questions and I'll do my best to answer them. Let's start with some background on the IELTS test. IELTS is the International English Language Testing System and is co-owned by British Council, IDP, and Cambridge Assessment English. It's designed to assess the English language ability of people who want to study or work in a country where English is the language of communication. It's a very successful test and there are reasons for it, and I'm going to introduce or present 4 main reasons. Global recognition. There are over 10,000 recognizing institutions globally that accept and recognize IELTS. It's interesting to note that there are more than 3,000 institutions in the US that also officially recognize the IELTS test. The test format is unlike other tests. We have always tested all 4 competencies and we believe that it's the only way to have a complete picture of a candidate's level. The test uses international English and there is no bias towards British or American English. We employ item writers from various different English-speaking countries, so students will hear a variety of accents and read a variety of texts reflecting real-life tasks. A distinctive feature of IELTS popular with both students and institutions is the face-to-face speaking test. It's the only way to truly assess communicative and interactive competence, allowing candidates to ask for clarification, repetition, and so on, as they would do in the real world. The test is valid, reliable, and secure. Cambridge Assessment English is a leader in the field of test production. There are 6 stages of paper production with unique test versions. British Council is a leader in secure administration. We ensure that the tests are fair and objective with stringent pre, during, and post-test security measures. Another reason for success is the test accessibility and added value. There are frequent test dates at our centres across the world. Test takers can get their results in 13 days if they do the paper-based version, and between 5 to 7 days if they do the computer delivered version. And they can also ask for the TRF to be sent to organisation. I'll talk about that a little later. We also have a wide variety of resources available for test takers, such as Road to IELTS, our online preparation course, our IELTS app, and there are face-to-face courses in many countries around the world. You can take a look at our website, takeielts.britishcouncil.org, for more information on those, and I'll give out the web address again later at the end of the presentation. There are 2 versions of the IELTS test, the academic and the general training. Well, which one is best? It really depends on what you want to use it for. The academic version is usually used for entry to university, college, professional registration and recruitment. It assesses the ability of the test taker to study or train at undergraduate or postgraduate levels. The general training version is used for immigration, vocational, secondary education, language training, work experience, and it assesses the survival skills of the test taker in a broad social and educational context, things that they'd come across in everyday life. But it's a good idea to always check with the receiving organization which test you need to take before you register. The test format, I'll just go over very quickly. There are 4 sections to the test: the listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and the test takes about 2 hours and 44 minutes. The listening test is 30 minutes with 4 sections and 40 items. It is the same for both the academic and general training. Test takers listen to 4 recorded texts, monologues, and conversations by a range of native speakers and write their answers to a series of questions. The reading is 60 minutes. There are 3 sections and 40 items. Now, these are different for the academic and the general training. In the academic version, there are 3 long texts which range from descriptive and factual to discursive and analytical. The texts are authentic and are taken from books, journals, magazines, and newspapers, and are on academic topics of general interest. There's no specialist knowledge needed here. In the general training version, test takers are required to read extracts from newspapers, advertisements, instruction manuals, and books. These are materials that they could encounter on a daily basis in an English-speaking country. The writing is 60 minutes and there are 2 tasks. And again, there is a little difference between the academic and the general training. In both versions, task 2 is the same, but for task 1 in the academic, test takers are presented with a graph, table, chart, or diagram and are asked to describe and explain the data, describe the stages of a process, how something works, or describe an object or event. In the general training version, task 1, test takers are presented with a situation and are asked to write a letter requesting information or explaining the situation. The letter might be personal, semi-formal, or formal in style. In task 2, for both versions, that's academic and the general, test takers are asked to write an essay in response to a point of view, argument, or problem. The IELTS band scale is what we're going to look at now. It's scored out of 9, so there is no pass or fail. Each band corresponds to a level of competence in English. All parts of the test, that's the 4 skills, and the overall band score are reported in whole or half bands, for example, 5.5 or 7.0. Again, it's a good idea to check with the receiving organization the score that you need to achieve. Here you can see a sample of a TRF or test report form. Test takers can ask for us to send up to 5 electronic report forms to receiving organizations free of charge. If they want to send more than 5 copies, then there will be a courier charge. Again, it's a good idea to check with your local test center if you need more than 5 copies, what the charge for that will be. As you can see on the TRF, the test results are broken down into the 4 skills and there is an overall band score. Point to note here that it doesn't say on the test report form whether the test taker took a paper-based or a computer-delivered version of the test. So let's look at the modes of delivery. There are two modes of delivery. One is the paper-based, which is the main mode at the moment. All the answers are all handwritten onto IELTS answer sheets. For the computer delivered, the listening, reading and writing answers are all typed directly onto the computer. The speaking test remains the same for both. It's face-to-face, one-to-one with a certified IELTS examiner. And so far, we offer the CD IELTS in over 50 countries. Now we're going to look in a little bit more detail at the computer delivered IELTS. I'm going to talk about why take the computer delivered IELTS, how and where you can take the computer delivered IELTS, some key messages, some FAQs or frequently asked questions, similarities and differences between the computer delivered and the paper-based test, and also talk about some useful websites. Well, why the computer delivered IELTS? There are more test locations available to do the test. There are more dates available as the test is run more frequently than the paper-based. Test takers can get their results more quickly, 5 to 7 days, as opposed to 13 days with the paper-based. And test takers can register closer to the test date before taking the test. Let's take a look at the format. It's exactly the same. There's the listening, the reading, the writing, and the speaking, and the same with the academic and the general training versions, exactly the same content as the paper-based test. Some key points: there's no difference in the content of the test, and there's no difference in the value of the results. As I said, on the TRF, it doesn't say whether the test taker has taken the test a paper-based or a computer-delivered test. A 6.5, for example, is the same, regardless of whether the test was taken, was done on paper or whether it was computer-delivered. Test takers will be able to choose between modes of delivery that they want to do, they prefer to do, where both are available. Okay, before I go to the questions, there'll be a quick poll for you. You should see it on your screens any moment. So the first question, do test takers have to have computer skills? And the second question, can test takers with special requirements take the computer delivered IELTS? Just give everybody a minute to vote. Okay, let's see the results. %80 say yes, 20% say no to the computer skills, 81% say yes to the special requirements, and 19% said no. Okay, thanks for that. So the test takers don't necessarily need to have computer skills to take the computer delivered test. However, they do need to feel confident using a keyboard. They need to be able to type fairly quickly. And it's really useful if they are able to use the shortcut functions of cut, copy, and paste, especially in the writing part of the test, and also for the reading part of the test too, so they can copy and paste answers into the answer box. Can it be done at home or using the test taker's own computer? Well, the answer to that is no. They have to go to an official test center, as IELTS remains a very high stakes and secure test. Test takers do need to take the IELTS test on computers provided by the test center. What about the language of the keyboard? The default keyboard will be QWERTY in format. So if in your country another format is used, it is a good idea to get students to practice on the QWERTY keyboard if they do want to take the computer delivered IELTS. And the speaking test, is it done on a computer? I think you know the answer. No, it's not changing. It remains one-to-one, face-to-face with a trained IELTS examiner. The other question in the poll was about candidates with special requirements. While the paper test caters to all test takers, the IELTS partners are researching enhancements to the computer test to cater more fully for special requirements. Again, please do check with your local test center if you or your students have any special requirements for taking the test. Okay, we're going to go into more detail of the different skills on the computer delivered IELTS. There's another quick poll question coming your way now. How long are test takers given to check their answers at the end of the listening test? I'll give you a minute to make your choice. Okay, let's have a look at the results, if we have them. Oh, very split. That's pretty even. Interesting. Split 3 ways. Okay, let's have a look at the answer. Well, for the paper-based, the listening test is 30 minutes and there's 10 minutes transfer time at the end, where they transfer the answers from the question booklet onto the answer sheet. Test takers can make notes on test paper, and they can also make notes on the question paper, the test paper. Test takers can also write in capital letters to avoid any punctuation errors. And some centers use headphones, but other centers use speakers. The computer delivered is 30 minutes as well, and test takers' answers are typed directly onto the test paper. They have time at the end of every section to check their answers, as with the paper-based, but at the end they have 2 minutes to make further changes and to check their answers. They're given a paper and a pencil to make notes if they wish. And they can also write answers in capital letters as with the paper-based. And of course, they have headphones to use while they are doing the test. Here you can see a screenshot of the listening test. Some other key differences here to point out. There's no example given at the beginning of the listening test, unlike the paper-based versions. They cannot underline or highlight keywords in the question. They can't leave a blank space. So they must put something into the space, a question mark, or mark it for review. I don't know if you can see clearly at the bottom left, there is a review button. They can mark the question for review and come back to it at a later stage if they want to. And at the top right-hand corner of the screen, they have a volume button to adjust the volume if they wish. Moving on to the reading test key points. With the paper base, the clock is visible in the room, and test day supervisors will announce how much time is left: 40 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and 5. With the computer delivered, the clock is on the computer's screen. I'll show you another screenshot in just a moment. It'll flash red, at 10 minutes and 5 minutes. With the paper base, there's a test booklet and separate answer sheet. There's no transfer time in the reading test, so they have to write their answers directly into the answer sheet. With the computer delivered, the text appears on the left of the screen and the questions and boxes for answers on the right. And there are scroll bars for both of those to move through the text and the questions. Some other key points with the paper-based: if they want to change their answers, they have to use an eraser. With the computer delivered, to change their answers, it's a little different. With the multiple choice, if they have, say, selected answer option A, and they want to change it to option B, they just click on option B and it will change. With the drag and drop, they just drag the new answer into the box. With the written answers, they just delete the answer and write in the new one. In the paper-based, text can be marked up, underlined, circled, and so on, as the test taker wishes. With the computer delivered, it can be marked, but it's done in a different way. There's a highlighter button that allows excuse me, test takers to mark important parts of the test. There is also a note function that allows you to both highlight the text and put some notes in a text box. You can leave the text box open on the screen or close it and reopen it later. Here you can see some examples of that. With the left screenshot, the test taker has highlighted the areas of the text that they want to focus on. The questions are on the right-hand side, and in the other screenshot, as you can see, they've also made some notes in the text box. As with the listening, at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, there is a review button. So you can click review and come back to a question later if you're unsure about the answer or want to check it. Moving on to the writing test, some key points. In the paper base, there is a text booklet and 2 answer sheets. In the computer delivered, the questions are on screen and answers are typed directly onto the screen. With the paper-based, test takers need to practice and estimate how many lines they need to reach the word count. With the computer delivered, this is done automatically. The word count appears on the screen as they're typing. With the paper-based, if they make any mistakes or want to make any corrections or editing, they put a line through things that need changing or they want ignored. With the computer delivered, they just delete it and rewrite it. In both versions, test takers can decide which task they do first, if they want to do task 2 first or task 1 first. In the computer delivered, the work is automatically saved. And also, as I said earlier, the shortcut functions are very useful here for editing the copy, paste, and undo. Here again, we have 2 screenshots of the 2 tasks. The left-hand side is task 1. As you can see, it's a table, and the text box where the answer must be typed in is on the right-hand side. At the bottom of that box, I'm not sure you can see, but the word count can be seen there. On the right-hand side is writing task 2. The question is on the left, and the answer is typed into the box on the right-hand side. Again, the word count can be seen at the bottom of the box. Okay, that's a very quick run through of the IELTS test with a focus on the computer delivered IELTS test. I'll open up the floor now. We have about half an hour for questions. I'll do my best to answer the questions that you have. If there's anything that you would like to ask, please do type it into the chat box. So for more information, as we're waiting to see if there are any questions, you can take a look at our website, takeielts.britishcouncil.org. There are some really good videos that show you, give you a clear insight into what the computer delivered test looks like. You can also register and do a practice test, a computer delivered practice test. And you can also watch some videos giving more information and suggestions and hopefully familiarize you with the computer delivered test a little bit more. Okay, some questions coming through. A unique test version is the question. Oh, lots of questions now. I've lost it. You mentioned a unique test version. Could you clarify what this means? Okay, so this means that every test is different. There may be test items that are possibly reused, but never in the same combination. I hope that answers your question, Grade. The next question, is there any platform where applicants can practice this new mode? Yes, our website, takeielts.britishcouncil.org. If you go there, you can register to do a practice computer delivered IELTS test, and you'll be emailed results as well. I hope that answers that question. How does one become a licensed IELTS test specialist in Ukraine? Olena, I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean as a teacher or as a test center? As a test center, you would need to contact your local British Council office to see what the conditions are to become a test center. As an IELTS specialist teacher, There are workshops that are run face-to-face and online for teachers of IELTS. Do contact your local test centre for more information on that. I hope that answers your question, Alina. Jamilia, hi. Can I do writing test on computer but others on paper? No, it's an either or, Jamilia. You either do it all on the computer or you do it all on paper. The next question, is the quality of listening better while taking a computer-based exam? That's a good question. It's not about the quality. I think it's about the headphones. Most test centers do use headphones, regardless of whether it's paper-based or not. With the computer delivered, it's all with headphones. You can adjust the volume as you wish. With the paper-based versions, most test centers use headphones, but some don't, and they have speakers. It's worth checking with your local test center. Maria asks, can we type the answers all in capital letters in all sections? Yes, is the short answer to that. You can. Ian has the same issue with capital letters. Yes, I mean, it's, we always recommend to write in the listening, especially to write everything in capital letters so that the test takers don't have to worry about punctuation and capitalization, and that's perfectly acceptable for both versions. Next question from Ivana. In the paper-based test, you use a pencil in all parts? Yes, Ivana, you use a pencil in all parts. Next question from Galaxy A7. I think that's a telephone. If a student has intermediate or upper intermediate level, is it possible for him to pass IELTS for high band 8 or 9? That's an interesting question. I think you would have to be higher than intermediate level. Test taking, preparation, test skills, test familiarity will help to a certain extent, but ultimately it is a language test. So you do need to have C1, C2 level of English in order to be able to get a high band score of 8 or 9. I hope that answers your question. Arta has already said no. Olena, as a test centre, yes, please do contact your local British Council and talk to the exams team about the conditions required to become a test centre. Unfortunately, I don't have that information. Ina asks, is it possible to practice IELTS on computer before passing it? Yes, Ina, you can again go to our website, takeielts.britishcouncil.org, and do the practice test there. Lena says, don't be sorry, Lena. Do students have an opportunity to start with task 2 first? Yes, they do. In the paper-based and the computer delivered, they can decide which task they want to start with. So you are quite right. Ian asks, many people take IELTS as a group. We need material to use in a classroom. Is this available? IELTS.org practice tests are okay for a bit of home practice, but don't cut it in the classroom. There are lots of good course books out there, Ian, that you could use. I'm sure you're familiar with them already. Choose one that suits the level of your students and, more importantly, the amount of time you have with them to prepare them for the test. Sometimes teachers don't have the luxury of having them for a whole year or 6 months. It's sometimes just a very short course that they have to do. But there's not a book that we would necessarily recommend, but there are lots of good course books out there that you could use. There are also some ideas for teachers on our website, and also on our Teach English website, the British Council Teaching English website as well. Take a look there. Marina asks, can we pass this exam only for checking our knowledge? Is there a trial version? Again, the trial version is on our website, the computer delivered one that you can do and get some results, get some feedback, if that interests you. Ina asks, can we write capital letters in the reading? Yes, you can. No reason why not. Grade asks, in CD IELTS, does each candidate do the test at their own pace? Or does each section start simultaneously? Everybody starts at the same time, and the timing for each section is the same. So they have 30 minutes for the listening with 2 minutes at the end, 60 minutes for the reading, 60 minutes for the writing. Marie asks, students are usually getting high scores in all the skills except writing. Yes, that's a common thing, Maria. I would suggest perhaps looking at the public band descriptors for the IELTS writing and see what perhaps your students need to work on in order to improve their IELTS scores. There are lots of samples available from various publishers, and also online, IELTS.org, our website as well. You can take a look at samples of students' writings and the scores. But the public band descriptors are really useful. Another question, if the spelling is, I think it's, is the spelling automatically checked? No, there's no spell check, I'm afraid, in the computer delivered test. So that software doesn't exist. So students do need to pay attention to their own spelling. Thank you, Bill Chai, for sharing that link. That's the link that you could, if you click on, you can go to the test I was talking about, the familiarization test for the computer delivered IELTS. Thank you for sharing that link for the materials as well. Armin asks, is it obligatory for an IELTS teacher to have the very certificate? That's an interesting question. I wouldn't necessarily say have the certificate, but you need obviously to be familiar with the tests. I'm a great advocate for doing the practices, the tests that I expect my students to also do. So if you're going to do a practice test with your students, I really, really highly recommend that you do the test yourself first and see what the challenges will be with that particular practice test that your students might face. I think it's very revealing when you do, if you as a teacher have challenges doing that particular reading test or that particular listening test, then you can be sure that your students might struggle with it too. Okay. Bill Chai has also shared another very useful link. Thank you. I'm very behind the messages. I'm trying to catch up. What books can we recommend? British Council doesn't recommend any particular practice book. but I would go to reputable publishers and use their books. There are a lot of practice tests that you can access that are past papers. So those are always a good place to start as well. Thanks, Bilche. Road to IELTS, yep, is another source for practice tests for IELTS. Part of Road to IELTS is free for people to use if they register on our website. And if they register to take the test with us, the real test, if you like, with us, they will get access to more content on Road to IELTS. Lena asks, TOEFL and PTE have some software to run a number of mock tests. Do you think you could tell us when or if there's a plan to introduce some CD IELTS software? That's a very good point. I'm sure there will be more mock tests and practice tests coming very shortly. Do keep an eye on our website. There will be updates about all the resources available. You can also download our IELTS app, which is really useful. Lots of useful practices on our app as well. Another question, how often can you take the test if you're not satisfied with the result? As often as you like is the short answer, but again, for recommendations, I would say to, if the test taker doesn't, if the candidate doesn't get the result that they want, they really should go back and do some more practice, get some more remedial help before taking the test a second time. Taking the test in quick succession, I don't see how they would improve their scores massively. For speaking practice, Noreen asks, there are good videos available on our, I think, YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken. You can see some sample interviews. The usual practices that we do in class for speaking is always useful, but take a look at the test, look at the band descriptors as well, the public band descriptors, to see what skills test takers need to demonstrate to achieve a better score. Thank you, Bilche, for sharing the app link. Ian says, the problem with CD test is material, unlike the paper-based test where there's a lot of stuff. That's a fair point. There is more, there'll be more coming, more is being developed as we speak. As it's fairly new, we're still catching up, but there's still quite a lot out there available.